I can see it clearly from the
Hopefully that
other
will
side.
work. I don't get anywhere to screen and be okay.
Perfect, you're not live.
Thanks.
No worries.
So, morning everybody.
Morning.
I'm Mark, I'm the town clerk. I just want to introduce Ian Lambert. He's the regional manager for Cash Access UK.
That's correct. Yeah.
He's here today to support the first of our public engagement sessions. So we've got an open day really with Ian in Droitwich. We're doing 3 of these through the day. It's about 20 minutes or so, isn't it?
So 20 minutes, 30 minutes of questions, that sort of thing, generally.
Q&A afterwards,
Yeah.
and then in between the sessions that are publicised, Ian will be in town. We've arranged a market stand for him, so try and get as much contact with the public about the forthcoming banking hub and the services it can provide. So,
Yeah, it's important because we've found that when we start talking about banking hubs, thanks Mark, we start talking about banking hubs, we find that word of mouth and sharing and spreading the word is very, very important. From experience, we open banking hubs, and whilst there's excitement in the town and it generates early excitement, the banking hubs begin obviously a little bit quieter than we would like. And then we find after 2 or 3 months, once word gets about, they get very, very busy. After 6 months, extremely busy, and then 6 to 9 months, it's almost like we need double the space. So word spreads, it spreads amongst the town initially, and then we start to see people coming, in this case, they'd be coming from outside Droitwich, they'd come from around and about surrounding areas, they'd come into Droitwich to use the banking hub, because of course they'll be in a similar position to people in Droitwich, which they'll be losing their own banking facilities, and they'll be coming into Droitwich, which is a handy thing. We'll come on to that for the town, because obviously they come into Droitwich from outside, and they spend money in the town as well. And we start to see, statistically, we're starting to see that it helps to regenerate towns where they become quiet, because their banking facilities are closed historically over the last few years. So, banking hubs. Good morning, and I'm delighted to be here in Droitwich, a town I've been back and forth to once or twice. I come from Northampton. I look after the sort of the Midlands area for Cash Access. We get awarded banking hubs to towns. They get announced. I pick them up from there, and I deal with the local communities in terms of the communications that go back and forth with the town council, community action groups like Mark, who chair local groups, and the MP. And we spread the word as much as possible along our journey to opening the banking hub as to where it may or may not be located in town. Once we settle upon a location and we legally sign a lease, we can reveal a location. But right up until that point, much like buying a house, there's negotiations that take place with the landlord, and we can't reveal any location until we've actually signed the lease. That'll come a bit further down the road, but as and when we do, we'll share that location with the town, and they can spread the word for us about where it's going to be located. I'll come on to that in a short while. And then once it's open, I also maintain the hubs and make sure they're maintained, kept open to a high standard. So, has anybody got any initial questions for me straight away, or do you want me to work through and we'll see how we go? Ask away, I think. Keep it nice and informal this morning. So, it's a little bit small. I know it's going to be difficult to read. So we share this presentation with on what we call our live Teams meetings, where we often have initial meetings with MPs from a distance. So we do them over the internet, and these are up on screens. We share these screens. A little bit small, not typically designed for a room such as this. But this presentation is going to talk us through most of the questions that most people would ask about what is a banking hub and how does it come about. So, just a quick word about us. Cash Access UK is a company that's been formed on the back of discussions that the government had with the banks several years ago about the commercial activities of a bank in a town might be difficult to maintain, that they're expensive operations to run branches across towns where most people now are migrating to use these things for banking. So a lot of people are moving onto their phones, a lot of youngsters moving onto their phones. And a lot of people using their computers to do their banking. But of course, there's millions of people, older people especially, and people that don't engage with technology. We call them digitally excluded people, people that don't trust, say, banking on the internet. There's millions of people that don't, 5, 6 million at last count, of people that still want access to cash, still want to use cash for their budgeting, etc. And they still want access, face-to-face access with their local community banks, much like they used to. So the government asked the banks what they were going to do about that, and the idea of banking hubs was born, a creative idea about a banking hub where we can open a shared space, and in Banking Hub's case, at least 5 banks, the largest 5 representative banks that are in Droitwich in this case. Once we do that survey amongst the banks themselves, they'll analyse who are the largest 5. Often the largest one would be your last bank in town, and that in this case I think is Santander. So we'd offer a day a week each to those branches, and I'll share that how that works a bit later on, and I'll talk you through the brochure that you've got in front of you. So Cash Access was formed. We're a not-for-profit company. We operate under Financial Conduct Authority guidelines, government guidelines, and the banks with their cooperation, which there's a large sort of working group of the bank's representatives. So we operate under all those guidelines. And we say, as a not-for-profit company, we are charged with implementing the award of banking hubs into areas. So Droitwich was awarded a banking hub because of the town needs it, and I was speaking to Mark several months before the award was made, about how much Droitwich needed a banking hub. Santander closing as what we call the last bank in town sort of kicked it just over the finishing line, and it meant that the company that do the analysis of towns, a company called Link, they're the company that run the cash point machine network across the UK. They've got all the stats, all the statistics about cash transactions across the UK. So Link did the analysis. They do an independent analysis based on what the government and banks have agreed, what a town may or may not need. And it meant that Droitwich qualified for its banking hub. And I'm pleased to tell you that A, you're getting a banking hub, that B, you're getting what I think is the best banking hub, which is what we call a Type A banking hub with a cash point machine. So you're going to get an ATM machine in the banking hub as well. Because there are banking hubs that are awarded without ATMs. They're more expense. And if a town doesn't need another ATM because they've already got some, we won't award another ATM. But in your case, you're getting an ATM with a banking hub, which is great for you. So Cash Access, we implement the award, we find the properties, we do the building work, we get the planning permissions, we open the banking hub, and then I maintain the banking hub in this area and make sure it stays open and up to standard. That's what we do. We're paid for, incidentally, by the major banks. So the banks share the cost of Cash Access UK, and they share the cost of the banking hubs, both to open them within a budget and also to maintain them going forwards. So the banks still have some financial investment in the town through the banking hub itself, even if they're not part of the 5 of the group that will be in Droitwich, they're still sharing the cost of it, because of course across the UK it all evens itself out. That's our little logo in the bottom corner here, the bottom left-hand corner. I always explain it because when I first saw that, I thought it was maybe a dove or something like that, but it's actually a hand catching notes and coins, and that's representative of Cash Access, access to cash, which is where the government started this whole process. Was how are people, businesses, and how are the members of the public that still rely on cash, people that are still paid by cash, how are they going to get access to cash? Hence our name, Cash Access, and that's where it was born. And then alongside that, we've got the what we call the community bankers that work a day a week each in the banking hub throughout the week, offering face-to-face advice for people that want that face-to-face service for more complicated banking queries. So is there a banking hub near me? We often put this up. That slide hasn't changed, the dotted slide. We've got banking hubs, we've got deposit services across the UK. We're up to about 140 now. The company's only about a year and a half, nearly 2 years old, Cash Access. It's not that old. At the end of 2023, they'd only implemented about 30 or 40 banking hubs at that stage. At the end of last year, 2024, we've raised that number to just over 100 banking hubs. And now, towards the end, where are we, early April, we're up to about 130, 140 banking hubs. We've opened a lot in the last 3 or 4 months. So it kind of is gathering pace, and we can't open quick enough across the UK, you can imagine. But if people search on Cash Access UK or the locator on the websites and so on, that's not necessarily our audience, people that use the internet, but they can find their local banking hubs. Incidentally, we've announced over another 100 banking hubs, or Link have announced another 100, so we could well be pushing through 200. I think we're announced up to about 240 so far. The Labour government included us in their manifesto, and they want us. They've given us a target of over 350 by the end of their sort of parliamentary span. So, personally, I think we'll be well through that number. But yeah, we should be over 200 by the end of this year. So why are you getting a banking hub? Well, Link have reviewed Droitwich and said that it's obviously a vibrant town and it can support a banking hub. You can imagine the cost of a Lloyds Bank in town or a Santander in town. It's not rocket science to think that if you've got several staff members, if you said they're earning 25,000 a year, you just add that up, just on staff salary costs plus the cost of the building itself. You can see that number could quite easily stretch to over £250,000 a year for a branch to stay open. And banks have found that unsustainable based on the numbers that are walking through their front doors. When we open a banking hub and we give them a day a week each in the banking hub, it's a busy day for that bank. But if they're open 5 days a week, it's a very, very quiet week they're having. And that's because more and more people are migrating onto their phones, onto the internet. But of course, this is why the government wanted people to still be able to see someone from their bank locally, and they want people to be able to access cash facilities, and that's why Cash Access was formed, and that's why the banking hubs come. So people can still do that. Our banking hours, you can see on, I don't know if you can make that out, it is in the leaflet as well, but we open 9 till 5 opening hours, Monday to Friday. And you'll see there the post office symbol. I think that might be the first time we've seen a post office symbol. That's a kind of our logo. It's black. It says Banking Hub. It's got a post office logo, and it's got a Cash Access logo there with it too. The post office run in agreement. The post office run the cash counter services. So they offer basic cash banking facilities within the Banking Hub, and it's the post office that recruit the staff to manage it. So we'll have a post office manager. We call them Banking Hub operators, but another term could be bank manager. They'll have a couple of staff members to operate the cashier positions. There'll often be 2 cashier positions within there. But because the post office run all of that and recruit and maintain their staff, they do not do, and it's one of the earliest, the first time I'm going to say it in Droitwich, but it won't be the last. We don't offer stamps, they don't do parcels, they don't offer any of the traditional post office services. It's purely the banking side of the post office operation, which is paying money in, taking cash out, paying cash in, paying checks in, and you'll see that within the leaflets itself. Those leaflets I've given out in the first page here. It'll describe what the post office services are. Pure banking services, withdraw cash, deposit cash and checks, make balance inquiries. For businesses, they can access change, which is handy for local towns now. A lot of have sprung up and they need access to cash and change. You can pay utility bills within there, and they'll help with most things. Little questions you might have about, my card's broken and stuff like that. They'll help with that. Of course, it'll be your bank you need to talk to get a replacement card, but they'll generally help with most things. That strictly will not be doing stamps and parcels. nor will they do foreign currency. Those will remain in the domain of the post office, because what the post office, whilst they help us run banking notes and the cash counter services, what the post office don't want to do is put all of the post office facilities in the banking hub, and then your local post office will end up closing. So they want to maintain both, and we've seen in towns where they're in close proximity that the numbers of people that attend the banking hub and the numbers of people that attend the post office, they both rise. So you don't lose customers from the post office to the banking hub, and vice versa. We found it's really a case of one and one does actually make three once they both become established, and that's because of what we talked about earlier, bringing people in from outside town, and it increases activity not only in the town and the banking hub, but it also increases activity in the local post office because people come into Broadbridge, whereas they wouldn't have done before. Very, very useful. Talks about cash services, banking services. Customers can talk face to face to your own bank about complicated banking inquiries. The banks are offering, as these banking hubs are starting to evolve, and the banks can see that they are kind of a vision of the future, you might like to think. We're opening them quickly. The services that the banks are offering through banking hubs are getting increasingly better. The banks are investing more and more time in making sure that if you go and see someone from Santander, Barclays, Lloyds, NatWest, when they first started in the banking hubs, say a year and a half ago, they bring a powerful computer over. They come into their room. I'll show you a picture of banking hub in a moment. But they've got their own community space within the banking hub itself. It's a nice, private and confidential glass office space that's soundproofed. So you can step into there, unlike a post office where you chat to someone over a counter and you've got a queue out the door. You can go into the banking hub and you can go into a private room. They'll close the door and it's nice and confidential. They'll plug their computer in the morning, your bank representative, and for all intents and purposes, that banking hub almost becomes a mini Lloyds Bank for the day or a mini Santander for the day. So each day of the week, a different representative from your top 5 banks, they will consistently come in on the same day. We very rarely make changes to those days unless the banks ask us to, or if there's a very, very good reason to, because we don't want to confuse the public. We'll organise them on a set day a week. They'll come in 9 till 5. They'll have a set break in the middle of the day, of course they will, which will be clearly communicated. And to start with, the hubs become a drop-in centre. So people can go in, they'll sit, there's table and chairs in banking hub, they'll be able to sit down and they'll just knock on the door and they'll go into their banking hub and see a community bank, we call it. But I guess they can offer 80 to 90% of the services that you can get if you went into a normal bank branch, you can get through your community banker. It's different for each bank. They are still competitive, competitively owned different businesses. They still offer slightly different services. They're all trying now and investing in more and more services that the bank they can offer through a banking hub. And the person that you'll see in a banking hub is an experienced staff member, because of course they're operating independently of any colleagues within the branch. So it's an experienced member of staff. They're very good at what they do. They love working in banking hubs. It's different to working in a bank branch where they might get pushed and pulled all over the place all day. They sit there and they have nice conversations with people all day, just helping people front to back. And they average over 15 people a day in a banking hub. When you think they're working several hours, they see a lot of people that day. So much so that now, as banking has evolved, in some of our larger banking hubs, we're actually piloting maybe two in-use spaces. They're getting that busy that we might have got 2 rooms for a community banker because they're too busy to cope with the numbers that are coming in to see them. So things are evolving. But when I say they can do 80 or 90%, it might be complicated things such as providing services for probate and stuff like that. They'll offer different ways of operating. Some will open a bank account from start to finish. Some will go 90% down the road and then you get some stuff sent out in the post. Mortgages, some will offer decisions. They're in the banking hub itself. Someone will set an appointment to speak to a mortgage advisor separately, and so on. So they're all slightly different. But the good thing about seeing someone face to face, you can explain what you're looking for. They'll either deal with it or they'll connect you straight in to someone in their organisation that can deal with it directly, instead of someone going on the telephone and waiting for a long time to get through. So something I like that. I'm sure that you'll welcome that. How soon do you get your banking hub? Well, there's a timeline there, and the light blue, I know it's quite small, but the light blue takes us up to 9 months. So your banking hub was announced on the 19th of March this year. So in the first 3 stages, which is the light blue line at the bottom, it talks about at the top finding a suitable property that meets our needs, a suitable size. All the banking hubs are fully disability compliant, fully DDA compliant, we call it. They're level access off the pavement. They're of a certain size and width of the door, so there's a touchpad entry, which is automatic. You can get mobility scooters in there, obviously wheelchairs, and there's big turning circles inside, so people can go to the counter in a mobility scooter, do their banking, have a chat, and they'll be able to turn it around easily, comfortably, and come back out. So fully disability compliant. So it means we have to get something of a certain size. If it's not level off the pavement, we'll often find, and it's a property we're really interested in, we have got nice creative solutions where we can put a gentle ramp inside and so on and so forth. But we deal with all that. We've seen lots of different property across the country. So finding a suitable property, we've already begun the search in Droitwich. We've got our property people are on the case already. They've looked at the town from their computer system, what we call desktop analysis from where they are in offices. But they've also enlisted local support through commercial property agents to look for a suitable property for us. So they're already on the case in Droitwich. They've already seen 1 or 2 properties they're interested in, but of course it's early days and we need to start talking to landlords and so on. We negotiate the terms with the landlord, we make an offer, we agree an offer, and then solicitors carry out legal work so we can sign the lease. That's the first, can be up to 9 months. So it could be a while before we hear any definite news on which property we've settled on. Sometimes, some towns we're more lucky than others. I say lucky because sometimes we drop into a property really quickly. Sometimes it's frustrating because the town's very, very busy. We're looking at a property in a town called Bakewell up north, which some of you may have heard of, in the Derbyshire Dales, Peak District area. And Bakewell's a very, very popular touristy area. And they're very lovely property, but they're very small and tiny little nooks and cranny property. That's causing issues to try and find a property there. Droitwich is a lovely place, a lovely town. I've had a quick look around on the desktop, and touch wood, we'll be on to some suitable properties soon. I know Matt and Mark and the local MP, I know they're all onto it already, and they're giving us a hand with finding property as well. So that's really helpful if we've got local people helping us to find property, which I'll pass on to our property team. So we have a separate team, property team, to sort that out. Once we've got that, in stages 4, the purple side, stages 4 to 7, that's when we seek planning permissions for local authority. We do drawings, architectural drawings to make sure it all fits with the local area. And then we'll begin a fit out. Fit out normally takes about 3 months. So you start, once the lease is signed and the legal agreements have been done, I'll communicate the address. We can publicly acknowledge the address. Rumours can start to circulate in the town. You may see that because you might see property people entering and going in and out of property. We might put planning permission in to see how it sits with the town council. Once it goes into town council's planning permission, it kind of becomes a little bit of public information and it kind of spreads. But until we've signed a lease, we don't release any official information about where it might be. We just can't. It's commercially sensitive for us. So I'll confirm the address in the town. And then fit out begins. Fit out takes us a couple of months of building work, and it takes 2 or 3 weeks for the post office to install their systems into the branch. They do that last once we've got the building correct. Then we'll open the place. We call it softly opening it. We'll give it a soft opening a week or 2 before we actually officially open it. And the difference between the two is the soft opening is it is open, but we're testing everything inside to make sure everything works properly. And then we'll organise an official opening a week or two later once we know everything's okay. And that'll include cutting a ribbon, inviting local dignitaries to come and do that, local newspaper and taking some photos and so on and so forth. And then you're off and running, which I look forward to. Yeah, that's how that works. What do we look for in a permanent location? I kind of described that. Customers' space for a banking hub that's fully DEA compliant. It needs to be the correct size, needs to be fully accessible. And we put there, I know it says it may sound obvious, but it has to be a suitable property that is available and on the market. Sometimes that's difficult. But it's going to be the right location. Location's kind of everything in this case, because a lot of our demographic are older people and people that might travel to this area on a bus. So it has to be somewhere very central in a key location where we can get a lot of buses back onto buses. Maybe some parking if we can, ideally. But yeah, nice location is everything. Location, 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 as they say. So we'll make sure it's right somewhere smack bang in the middle of town. I'll say it now actually, the promise of our delivery has to be before the Santander closes. So your last bank in town is 1 year's notice to close. That's important for people to recognise. So Santander will still be open for a year after it's given notice. So from the 19th of March, it'll be open until the 19th of March 2026. Our commitment is to provide a service delivery and have a solution in place before Santander closes. So we will have a banking hub open before 19th of March 2026. Now it's going to take the form of either one of two things. If we can find a permanent facility, bricks and mortar, perfect location. Mark's talked to me already of, say, the HSBC building, which probably a lot of you are familiar with. But something like that, if we can drop into something like that, fit it out, get it ready before the 19th of March, we will have it ready before if we can, and we'll open it as soon as it's ready. But if we struggle to find a location, we'll open a temporary banking hub. And a temporary banking hub is, we've got a separate team that looks for those. We find a corner of a town council facility, a library, where we can open a temporary banking hub. It's opened a lot quicker, it's a little bit smaller. It often has one counter facility and a smaller kind of interview space. But we can kind of come in a corner, this kind of room, for example, we can take a third of this room, for example, and open up a temporary banking hub, somewhere like this. And that's just to tide us over until we can get the permanent banking hub fitted, fitted and correctly fitted out. Then we stand the temporary banking hub down, and then we go and move to the permanent banking hub facility after that. So we'll have a solution in place before Santander closes, before the 19th of March 2026. That's guaranteed. That's our commitment to the FCA. So you won't be left without anything in town. So there's a picture. Some of the stuff we talk about, which is establishing banking hubs and deposit services in communities. Yeah, of course, we consider environmental impact, face-to-face services for banking hubs and to our community banks. That's a picture of a banking hub inside. It's quite a modern, open plan facility. It's a typical banking hub. On the wall there on the right-hand side, you can see a poster that displays each day of the week, which day of the week a bank will come in, which banks they are. There's one displayed inside, and there's always one in the window for people to see from outside the banking hub. In this case, you can see it just says Barclays, Lloyds, HSBC, NatWest, and somebody else on a Friday. That'll be typically how it's displayed. That's the largest five in this particular community. Nice and open plan. 2 counter services there where people can go and do their cash banking, traditional banking facilities, paying money in, taking money out, etc. And in the rear, you can see the community banker space, the private and confidential space, and that's where the representative from the bank will operate from for the day. They all look like that. It just slightly altered depending on the property we find in size and location terms. There we are, that's our chat group coming into my laptop. Yeah, so typically the same, just altered slightly depending on the property we've got. This talks about what I do, which is meeting community organisations, Matt, Mark, local MP, and so on, focus groups, we have public meetings such as today. We'll provide the community with monthly updates as to how we're progressing along the way. There won't be too much to share early on, other than to say we're looking for suitable property as we speak. That will be the case for the next 2 or 3 months. After that, we hope things will start to get a little bit more exciting as we move through the year. We'll organise local informal events such as drop-in sessions, which is what I'm doing today. I'm spending the day in Droitwich today. I'm out on Market Square, back in here, back to the market, and then back in here to finish off later today. To start spreading it. And I always say at this point that, say my dad's 89. He'd welcome a banking hub. Of course he would in this town, where he can pop in and see his local bank and have a chat face to face. But he's not necessarily going to be able to get out and about to see community group meetings or drop into town and to speak about how the banking hub works. It would take someone like me or someone like yourselves to go back and help us find these people you know that would welcome the banking hub, but they're not necessarily going to come in and attend community group meetings. So, you know, I ask everybody at some point, and this is the moment today, is to go out and share what the banking hub is going to be, and you know, the timeline. We'll have something open before March 2026, hopefully before. But share the information about what you hear today. I'll give you brochures out. If you want to take a few brochures, a couple of brochures, and share those with friends, family, feel free, just ask away and I can give you plenty of brochures. As soon as we can, we'll let you know where the hub's going to be located, when it's going to be open, and we'll also share what banks are going to be represented in town. I think people from the town, you probably have a good idea about what banks will be represented. Often it's, you know, the big four, your Lloyds, your NatWest, HSBC, Barclays, and somebody else. And in this case, probably the Santander. If there's two that are quite close on numbers, sometimes they agree to share the day, and sometimes share a day to see how that goes for both of them. So you might get, say, I don't know, let's, for example, say Virgin Money. They're part of our group that pay for these banking hubs, and sometimes we'll have a Halifax. And in the right parts of in the locality, we might have a Virgin Money in the morning and a Halifax in the afternoon. So we will share a day if they're quite close, because we prefer to share a day and offer 6 banks back to a community than just the 5. And then we can see how that operates for 3, 6, 9 months, and then we'll make some adjustments if needs be. But we try not to make the adjustments too often because of, so we like to keep it consistent so people know exactly where they stand. Yeah, and we'll let you know when we're going to officially open it with cutting the ribbon. That'll come a bit further down the road. What communities say? Well, communities are delighted for it. It's a good news story all round, really. That's why I used to work for a bank, and now I work for Cash Access, and it's nice to represent something that really is good news. Banks love it because it's less costs for the bank, but they're still represented in Droitwich, which they love that. Of course they do. The public love it because they're getting access to cash, a cash counter, 9 in the morning till 5 at night, 5 days a week. And you're getting access to your bank face to face, whereas you're going to lose a Santander, yes, but you're going to gain 5 banks, at least 5 banks face to face banking services in the town. So it is good news all round, and it will bring people in from outside Droitwich to come into town and start using the banking hub from the local area, not just within the town. And they'll spend money in town, which is great for Droitwich. And there's my contact details, so if anyone wants to get in touch with me, it's ian.lambert@cashaccess.co.uk, my email address, my telephone number. Anyone from Droitwich, you're welcome to talk to me, and I'll share whatever news I can with you along the way. But in the meantime, I'll share the news with Matt, Mark, from the MP, and I'm sure they'll be sharing the news with the local community along the way. Okay, that concludes the formal side of it. I'll now open it up if there's any questions. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, but just feel free, relax and just ask away. Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I'm Mike Simpson, I'm the mayor actually of Droitwich.
Hello.
And it's interesting, when we did the petition, I thought lots of people went round with it, getting the ones that were filled in online. And everybody's great, many thanks for everything that Mark and Matt have done. And it's, I think it's a tremendous thing. A couple of queries that came up actually.
Yeah.
One is, how do people find out what their day is for the bank? And the other one is, if you do have a particular problem or particular thing you want to do, you make an appointment for a particular time? You're talking about the review of the incident places.
Yeah.
You actually do it that way. Two questions that arose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of how do we find out what banks are going to be represented, the work will start sort of kind of now, although it won't gather any pace until a bit later on down the road. But as far as we can in advance, probably 3 to 6 months in advance, we'll have a good idea about who the biggest 5/6 represented banks are in the Droitwich area. We'll start to publish that. We can start to share that, probably with about 3 months to go before we open, where the banks start to organise themselves because they have to provide a member of staff. These bank staff do still work for Lloyds Bank, they still work for Barclays. They'll come from a local large town and operate a day a week in. But as soon as we can let the public know who we're going to be in, we'll share that news and you can publicise that for us. That would be great. But it'll be well publicised in advance of the opening. It'll be inside the hub itself when it's open, but it'll also be in the window in a large screen display, so people will know who's coming in. And the second part of the question was about appointments. So when we first start, it's a drop-in. So a couple of the banks are operating online appointment making for their hubs. So, but it kind of doesn't fit with our demographic, who are already not on the laptop and on their computer. But for some people that say, a youngster that wants a mortgage, he can go online, he can book an appointment, he can pop in. I think Barclays are operating that, and any other bank are offering an online booking system.
That's a nice son who asked the question. So.
Yeah. So they will take, some of the banks will take appointments. It kind of evolves in the local area, and it's really much, it is down to the local community banker to see how busy they are. It's early days for us, and we're kind of, I've run in a bank before, and I understand the appointment booking system. I also understand the value of the drop-in as well, and I've seen both. And in banking hubs where it's busy, we can't do an appointment booking day all day, because that it defeats the object of people that pop in. They put on the bus, they'll drop in to see their local bank because they're in that day, and their expectation is they can actually drop in and see a community banker that day. So without too much of a wait as well. So there's different things happening across the UK about how people are approaching it. And I think I don't think we can put a UK-wide policy on it. I think for me, it's going to be something that's local. Personally, I like some drop-in time, and then I like an appointment or two. There's things happening, so like a 10 o'clock appointment in the morning and a 2 o'clock appointment in the afternoon, but the rest of the time is drop-in. There's different things happening. So I like to think people can pop in and just drop in and see their bank as quickly as possible. Maybe for a 10-15 minute chat. Sometimes that's all it takes. But yeah, I think we'll see how Droitwich goes, and it'll be down to your community bankers to sort of organise themselves with their sort of regional managers. But they are bank staff. Post office staff operate the counter, post office staff employed and run. The bank staff are bank staff. We don't employ any from Cash Access doesn't employ any. So
It won't be me cutting the ribbon, by the way, because my success will be in place by then. It's great. I won't be able to fit out my picture on the other.
Well, you're welcome to come along.
I will do.
You'll be welcome to come along. But no, thank you. They are questions we get asked a lot, so that's good to share. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I am still concerned. Oh, I know, beg your pardon. I live in this area.
Yeah.
I'm a retired person.
Yeah.
And my concern is about making an appointment. If I can give you just a brief example, I needed to put in power of attorney
Yes.
for my husband, and I was anxious about it. Of course, I'm well into my late 80s, and my son lives in Germany, so he came over
Mm.
And our bank is Santander, and we were able to go in, and they fitted us in the afternoon because it
Yeah.
takes much longer to deal with.
Yeah.
If that happened when there was Banking Hub and there was only one day, and you're saying they can only see 15 people in a day,
No, I didn't, no,
well, it was a possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
I'm just saying that the average is they see
Yes.
about 50 people a day.
I'm thinking for the future people.
Yeah.
That might present quite a problem, especially as you'd have to wait another week before you could go in.
Yeah.
And wait in a queue to see someone.
Yeah, no, I think if you popped in to see the bank that day, if you went in, I mean, if that was me, I'd probably go in a bit earlier in the day and I'd say to them, can I see you today? I've got a little bit, something slightly more complicated. They might say, yeah, come in now, because they might be free. It might be straight in. And they'll just shut the door. And if it takes an hour, it takes an hour. If it takes an hour and a half, it takes an hour and a half. They'll shut the door for as long as it takes. If they're busy that morning with X, Y, Z, they might say, if you come back at 1 o'clock this afternoon, we can sort it out. I'll put aside an hour and a half in the diary this afternoon at 1 o'clock. So I'm sure they'll be able to accommodate you that day. It may not be for that type of appointment they can see you there and then. It just depends on what's happening that day. But it's an open day. It's 9 till 5. They'll have that door open in the Banking Hub door where they operate from. And they'll often mingle outside with the general public. And if people come in and want to see them, they'll take them straight in if they're not busy. But if they are busy, then they do operate a system where they say they've gone in, they'll have a little chat with the post office people and say, I'm going to see someone now, I'm going to be about half an hour. I'm going to see someone now, I'm going to be about 10 minutes. So anyone coming in who wants to see them might say, they've been in 10 minutes, they said they'll only be about 10 minutes. So those people kind of hang around and wait to drop in when the person comes out. So we can do that. It's just, there'll be room to accommodate you. There'll be definitely room to accommodate that. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. Yeah, so I kind of can't guarantee you can go straight in to see your banker because there might be somebody there before you. But I can tell you they'll be there to see you at some point. And hopefully that'll be the same day. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my question was a really quick one.
Yeah.
Is the ATM free?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Yes, always. Banking notes, everything
Lovely.
is free of charge. Yeah.
Good.
ATM is always the case. That might be if you've got ATM representation in town already. When Link, that's partly why Link do the assessments. Link are the ATM network. They understand how many cash transactions take place in Droitwich, and they know all that statistical data. So when they analyse the town about business transactions and personal transactions across the town, ATM transactions, they can see all of that and they can see the demand. But you might have several ATMs in town, but then we award or Link award an ATM for the Banking Hub, and that might be because 6 out of those 7 charge. Some towns have only 3 ATMs, but they might all be free. So we might not put one in the Banking Hub. So it is not just ATMs, it's the availability of a free ATM. One that's going to be looked after, serviced, and have cash in and open a lot of the time, because we get that as well. Sometimes we don't give ATM service in some towns, but then we end up retrofitting one in later on because, I won't quote any company names, but there's different companies that operate them through supermarkets and so on. And sometimes those ATMs are shut quite a lot of the time because they don't replenish the cash often enough. I know when I was working in a bank, my boss was on to me constantly because he got the data about how much time we put, uptime, we used to call it open time for your cash point. If it ran out of money over the weekend, there'd be a lot of questions asked as to why it wasn't stashed full of cash on the Friday evening before we left. And if we did, we've done all we can. But if we didn't, there'd be questions asked. And that's the case in town sometimes with different cash point machines. But no, yours will guarantee free of charge, and we'll keep it open as much as we possibly can. That's the commitment, yeah, definitely.
Great stuff.
All right.
Just with regards to the Banking Hub, it can be used during the days that your bank isn't there as well, isn't it? If you need to deposit money or anything like that, it's...
Yeah, great question. And so I'll wear my voice out on that answer as well all day, but it's nice to share that news straight away. You you're not committed to come in the day your bank's in. So if you bank with Barclays and Barclays come in on a Monday, for example, you're not just able to come in and use the cash counter facilities just on the Monday when Barclays are in. You can come in and do your cash counter facilities any day of the week you like. In fact, the cash counter is open for any bank, any customer of any bank can come in and use the cash counter facilities. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, they can do their cash banking. And businesses can get change, businesses can pay money in, take money out, and so on and so forth. So it's any customer, any bank, Monday to Friday. It's only if you have a face-to-face inquiry or query with your particular bank, you have to come in the day that they're there so you can get to see them. That's always useful to get pointed out. Thank you, Matt, for that question. That's one of our common ones. Hello.
Yes, if you've got, how many representatives from each bank will be at the hub each day, on their particular day?
Yeah, on their particular day, there'll be one.
Just one?
Just one.
Now, if somebody has
In that
made
one
a
room.
long appointment,
Yes.
then there's no drop-in service, is there?
Well, yeah, we do the best we can with that. We've got one interview space, nice, private and confidential
Yes.
room. And the banks are conscious that there's one experienced member of their banking staff in the banking hub. And they do know that people will be dropping in, and they will be conscious to move efficiently through the day. But of course, if someone's in there and you drop in just after someone's gone in, we'll have some idea about how long that's going to be, because they'll ask the customer, what the inquiry is. They might say, my card's broken, my cash, my ATM card's broken, and they'll know that they can, within 5-10 minutes, they can have a little chat, they can get one organised, and that'll be a quick appointment. There might be a lady that comes in to sort out probate, which we know may take an hour or so at least. So different appointments take different lengths of time, and they'll give some indications of that to their banking hub operator, the bank manager. So I'll be half an hour and so on. So people coming in saying, can I see? I might say, well, they've been in about 15 minutes. They said they'll be about half an hour. So if you want to wait for 15 minutes, then, and there's a table and chairs in every banking hub. There's always a table and chairs for people to sit and wait at the next available drop-in opportunity. But as I say, every community bank will operate their own sort of system on how they get through their day, and it depends on the demand for that bank. The demand for Santander customers might be high. We know that the last bank in town, people migrate. So if your NatWest closes and Lloyds and Barclays and Santander are still open, often people will close the NatWest and go to one of the ones that are still open. And then another one closes, so they go. And it's like a pyramid. We end up at Santander. And it depends on over how long that takes, but that's naturally how people migrate. So the Santander day might be in town, might be very, very busy. But we are, where space allows, we're piloting opening a second interview space, which will mean 2 people will be in the bank of it. Not in Droitwich. I haven't heard about anything yet for Droitwich. It depends on the size of the property available. But we are piloting that around the UK, where there is much more demand for local services. But at the moment, it'll be down to the experienced banking staff member to manage their day efficiently, I'm afraid. That's how it works. Yeah.
If the demand is there, is there an option to open on Saturday for people that are working perhaps Monday to Friday?
Yeah, we do pilot that as well, and that's very much down to the local bank manager, banking hub operator. They'll look at the demand, and we've got a couple of pilots running across the UK where we might see that Monday to Friday let's say we see 500 people. We open on a Saturday as a trial, and if we still see 500 people, we're kind of spreading the 5-day activity over 6. If we open on a Saturday and we see 700 people, so an extra couple of hundred customers go on Saturday, there'll be a good reason why we open on a Saturday. And in some counties, we've still got Saturday cattle markets and so on. I know there's one out in the eastern counties where I work. We've got a Saturday cattle market where it does bring a lot of people in from outside town that one day. I think 1 day a week, 1 day a month. But they open on a Saturday, they trialled it, and it does serve a lot of extra customers the day it's open. So that might be a bank hub where we maintain a Saturday presence. Some we've trialled and it's made no difference or impact at all, and the Saturdays have been like very, very quiet, very peaceful. Well, we thought we'd try it because there might be a reason to try it, and then we won't continue with that. But yeah, there is an opportunity if local demand for different reasons suggests it might be worth a trial. We will try it 3 to 6 months and see what the numbers look like. Is it worthwhile for all those reasons? Yeah. So it's not off the table. That's what it is. All right. Okay,
Yeah,
any more for any more?
no, that was good.
Great. Well, thank you for your time this morning, much appreciated. I've got some leaflets here, so if you want to take one or two and spread the word for us, that'd be helpful. But thanks very
Take a
much.
couple for where I live, yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes, thank you,
All right. How would you like? Yes, sir. Is that a?
So see you on Monday.
Yeah. Is anything else? Spread the word for us. You got a couple?